The emergency session of Earth's Global Defense Council convened in a bunker that hadn't been updated since the Cold War, which meant the coffee was somehow older than the technology. President Martinez stared at the diplomatic report like it might spontaneously combust, which, given the circumstances, wasn't entirely impossible. "So let me get this straight," she said, rubbing her temples in a way that suggested a migraine visible from orbit. "The Vorthans want to declare war because Veronica wore a red dress?" General Thompson, a man who'd fought in 3 interstellar conflicts and once arm wrestled a sentient plasma cloud, nodded gravely. "Intelligence suggests they're mobilizing their entire fleet. They're calling it Operation Ocular Salvation." "Can't we just ask her to change?" suggested the Secretary of State, a reasonable woman who'd clearly never met Veronica Blackwood. "We tried," the general replied. "She said, and I quote, 'I paid 87 credits for this dress, marked down from 200. Do you know how hard it is to find anything that fits properly when you're shopping in the Orion sector?'" Their idea of medium is everyone else's circus tent. The president's eye twitched. "She's willing to start an intergalactic war over a clearance rack purchase?" Apparently, it also came with matching shoes. The silence that followed could have been measured in parsecs. Earth's official response, when it came, demonstrated why humanity had survived everything from ice ages to reality television. If the Vorthans expected contrition, perhaps a formal apology delivered in their preferred infrared spectrum, they had severely miscalculated the species that invented both the nuclear bomb and the deep-fried butter stick. The package arrived at Station Omega-7 via express courier, because even impending galactic war didn't excuse poor shipping etiquette. Veronica opened it in full view of the assembled diplomatic corps, her face lighting up like a child who just discovered Christmas came twice this year. "Oh, they shouldn't have!" She pulled out a second red dress, this one somehow more aggressively crimson than the first, with sequins that caught the light like tiny communist stars. The accompanying note read, "In case the first one gets dirty. Earth." The Zephyrian ambassador, a being composed primarily of sentient gas and good intentions, made a sound that their translator interpreted as appreciative whistle. "It really does bring out your eyes," they observed, completely missing the way the Vorthan delegation had started secreting what appeared to be tears, but was actually a mild acid. The galactic community's reaction was swift and about as coordinated as a jazz ensemble of deaf musicians. The Newsnet broadcasts couldn't decide whether to treat it as comedy or tragedy, eventually settling on tragic comedy with a slight lean toward what is wrong with these people. "Earth doubles down on dress diplomacy," screamed the headlines on 17 different worlds, in languages ranging from ultrasonic squeaks to controlled gravitational fluctuations. Veronica's press conference, because of course she held a press conference, took place in the station's main atrium. She wore the new dress accessorized with earrings that could have doubled as warning beacons and heels that violated at least 3 laws of engineering. "I want to be very clear," she said, leaning into the microphone array like she was about to drop the galaxy's hottest mixtape. "The Vorthan Empire's attempts to police my wardrobe are not just an attack on Earth, but on the fundamental right of every sentient being to look fabulous." Somewhere in the crowd, a young Altarian started slow clapping. Within seconds, half the assembly had joined in, though whether out of support or confusion remained unclear. Ambassador Krextheta's formal declaration of war arrived the next cycle, carved into a metal plate that was traditionally reserved for announcing things like supernovas or the cancellation of beloved holoshows. The language was flowery even by Vorthan standards, with phrases like crimes against ocular decency and willful infliction of chromatic trauma featuring prominently. The declaration's most memorable line, which would later be printed on T-shirts across human space, read, "Let it be known that the Vorthan Empire cannot and will not coexist in a galaxy where such aggressive redness is permitted to assault innocent retinas." The choosing of sides that followed resembled nothing so much as a cosmic game of Red Rover. If Red Rover involved faster-than-light travel and species-wide existential crises, the Zephyrians, as mentioned, sided with Earth because they genuinely thought the dress was pretty. The Crystalline Collective joined the Vorthans because red light refracted through their bodies in uncomfortable ways. The Machine Intelligence Union declared neutrality, citing insufficient data on the military applications of fashion. The Rigelians chose Earth's side after Veronica promised to wear the dress to their next trade negotiation, proving that spite was indeed a universal constant. The Void Dancers abstained from the conflict entirely, which was easy when you existed partially outside normal spacetime. Military mobilization began with all the gravitas of a slapstick routine performed by very serious actors. The Vorthan fleet, comprising some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, painted their hulls in what they called anti-red, a color that didn't quite exist in human visual range, but apparently looked like aggressive beige to everyone else. Earth's response was to commission a line of red uniforms for their entire diplomatic corps. The factory that received the order reportedly asked 3 times if the decimal point was in the right place. Veronica, for her part, seemed to be having the time of her life. Her social media posts, because yes, even impending galactic war didn't stop influencer culture, showed her ordering red accessories with captions like, "If you're going to start a war, coordinate accordingly," and "This lipstick is called Warmonger Crimson." How appropriate. The Battle of Station Omega-7 would go down in history as the most anticlimactic military engagement since the Great Staring Contest of Proxima B. The Vorthan fleet arrived in perfect formation, weapons charged, shields at maximum, and a battle cry that translated roughly to "Death to the Crimson Menace" echoing through their comms. Earth's fleet, hastily assembled and running on caffeine and spite, took positions around the station. The tension was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade, which someone probably would have tried if it weren't for what happened next. The station's main docking bay opened, and out walked Veronica Blackwood in what could only be described as a red ball gown that had been designed by someone with a personal vendetta against subtlety. It had layers. It had ruffles. It had a train that required 2 interns to carry. It was the kind of dress that didn't just enter a room, it colonized it. She stood there in the vacuum of space protected only by a personal force field and what historians would later describe as sheer audacity, and waved. The Vorthan fleet's reaction was immediate and total. It wasn't a retreat. Retreats involve some semblance of order. This was more like someone had hit the cosmic equivalent of a fire alarm. Ships collided with each other in their haste to escape. One destroyer actually flew backward into an asteroid. The flagship's captain later reported that looking directly at the dress through their view screens had caused their navigation AI to achieve sentience, just so it could have a nervous breakdown. "Psychological warfare," screamed the Vorthan news networks. "The humans have weaponized fashion." The peace treaty negotiations took place a week later. The Vorthans, desperate to end what they called the Red Terror, agreed to meet on the condition that Veronica wear something, anything, else. She showed up in red pajamas. Not just any pajamas. These were silk, with little pictures of Earth landmarks printed on them in, yes, darker red. The Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall, the Sydney Opera House, all rendered in various shades of cardiac arrest. "These are my negotiation pajamas," she explained to the whimpering Vorthan delegation. "I want everyone to be comfortable." The treaty was signed in record time. The Vorthans agreed to pay reparations, mostly to fund therapy for their affected citizens. Earth agreed to establish red-free zones in certain diplomatic areas, which Veronica immediately violated by painting her nails, and so ended the shortest, strangest war in galactic history. Not with plasma cannons or antimatter bombs, but with one woman's commitment to a sale price and a color that really did bring out her eyes. The hegemony of rational species updated their conflict resolution protocols to include a section on sartorial warfare, though nobody was quite sure if they were joking. Fashion magazines across human space experienced a surge in sales. The color red saw a 30% increase in popularity, with Warmonger Crimson becoming the season's must-have lipstick shade. As for Veronica Blackwood, she was promoted to senior ambassador and given a clothing allowance that could have funded a small colony. She used it to buy more red dresses because of course she did. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate humanity's ability to turn absolutely anything into a weapon, especially if it's on sale.